John Maxwell talks about that, which I love. He says that success is not the destination. Success is the thing you're doing to get there. So like in my example, I wasn't successful when I wrote that last check. I was successful when I made the decision to get out of debt and start making a plan. That was successful. So your client is successful when they show up to their workout, even if they're still 100 pounds overweight, they're successful the minute they start making that decision.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today we're going back to Long Island, New York for my good friend, Billy Hofacker. And Billy's been on the show before, and Billy, he's a good guy. He's my buddy. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So I'm trying to get a roll in with him if I ever see him again, once I get my elbow all rehabbed and everything. But he also owns Total Body Boot Camp and Performance Centers. They have 2 locations there in Long Island, New York. He runs Your Fitness Money Coach podcast. You can find that anywhere you can get podcasts. It talks about money and fitness, and those two go together like oil and water, right? And then you also have your fitnessmoneycoach.com, which is your coaching business. So Billy, welcome back to the show, man. It's always good to have you.
Yeah, it's always a good thing when I get to talk to you, brother. I'm excited to share and hopefully help some folks listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we've been running in the same circles for a while. I know you've had Micah on and Jackson Milan and a couple other guests. But today I wanted to talk about your story. And your story was that you were living in entrepreneurial poverty, meaning like you're trying to run a business and your personal finances were a wreck. You were $130,000 plus in debt. You go out your front door to go to work and your car's getting repossessed. I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that we often neglect to realize is that one of the best things that we can do for our business is get our personal financial house in order. And doing that, and I can share the story, but doing that helped me just to make better decisions with the business. It just gave me so many more options. So I think we're fooling ourselves if we think that we can have our financial house at home be a mess. I mean, I challenge you to find a successful, profitable business owner who has a mess of a financial house at home. And that's where I was. As you mentioned, I was in all of that debt. I had, it all started, the realization started with that knock on the door. I was getting ready for work. I was 30 years old, I believe. And I thought I was doing pretty well. I was like everybody else. I was, but I was doing what I loved. I was training people. I had a wife and just about to start a young family. And there we go. I found out that I had over $130,000 of non-mortgage debt, and that was all types. It was loans with friends, loans with family members. It was credit card debt. It was student loans. It was medical bills. I mean, I had it all, and it was a challenging time. It was a very discouraging time. And that was a pivotal moment in my life, and as well as my marriage. I think that was a huge moment for our marriage because it's obviously you can imagine it's scary for both. It was scary for both of us, especially my wife, because she's just wired differently, and I don't blame her, but it was a scary time for us.
Yeah, absolutely. But and your story is great. And I want to get into how you got out of that debt, because it helped not only change your life around, probably save your marriage, your family, but also help you run a better business in the long term. So, but I agree with you. If your personal finances are in disarray, then chances are the business isn't running as well as it can. So how did you get there? A, and then B, what were the first steps you took to start digging your way out?
It's crazy. Like I said, that's a common question that I get asked, like, how did you get there? And when I look back now, like over 10 years later, it's hard to believe that I did get there and I was able to get there. Like my mindset, my life is so different from where I wasn't. It's like hard to kind of put myself back there. But the best way I could describe it was just, the result of a lot of little things adding up. It wasn't just like anything, we talk about, we talk about the book Atomic Habits or any of those types of books. It's the little things that add up. It's the client that comes in 100 pounds overweight. Hey, how did you get to be so overweight? And it was the same thing for them, right? It was like they just ate a little bit too much. They did it every day for 20 years, and hey, here they are. And that's what happened to us. I remember I was actually pretty good with money when I was younger. Believe it or not, I was probably not even 20 years old. And I was living at home. I did have some expense. I was actually paying rent to my parents, but it was less than I would have been. And I was a saver. I saved up about 20 grand. And I threw it in some, this was the late 90s. I threw it in some aggressive stocks, mutual funds, and it went. I shouldn't really say that I lost it, because I did. But what happened was the stocks went down tremendously, and then who knows what happened from there. I don't have that money, so that was a lesson early on. But that's the kind of person I was. I was not a big spender. I wasn't somebody driving around a fancy car. In fact, that car that got repossessed was a Honda Accord. It was brand new. It was leased. It was a car that we certainly couldn't afford, but it wasn't the typical thing that you would think. Like, I'm walking around with this flashy jewelry, driving fancy cars. It was like, we lived pretty modestly. We just weren't, we didn't have any knowledge of finances. I didn't have my finger on the pulse at all. Money was leaking out everywhere. And as far as like the high interest debt, I remember it was just like one day, like we didn't have quite enough to cover our bills. And we just threw pulled it out of the store. And that was like where it started. And then I remember I had a door for the back entrance of my house, and it was literally broken. Like, the door wouldn't close. So this is actually kind of crazy. I mean, I don't live in like a super dangerous neighborhood, but like the back door to my house was literally open, like not unlocked. It was like open. And I just like left it like that for a little while. And I slept down there. My bedroom was in the downstairs. So somebody could have just literally walked in the open door anytime. And when I got married, I'm like, man, this is not a good look. I have to have a door that closes on my house. So that was another example. So we went to Lowe's and didn't have the money, and we put it on the card. And it was just like all these things, one after the other. It's just a nasty, nasty snowball.
So yeah, because I just had Michelle Cooper on the podcast with Alchemy Accounting, and she was talking about about entrepreneurial poverty and the poverty mindset, and how it is a mindset and it's not necessarily a mindset that, hey, I'm going to take on debt, like you said. It's just that, hey, I got to fix this, but I don't have the money. So I'm going to kind of magician my way with this credit card. And then that just slowly adds up. Like you said, every day. I mean, the one that, always pisses me off is Starbucks, when my accountant goes, oh, look how much you spend on Starbucks. But, it does add up.
It does.
You go and spend, $10 a day, 5 days a week over the course of a year. That's a lot of fucking money. Right. Yeah. So, but again, it comes down to habits, like you said. So take us through some of the habits that you had to incorporate or change in order to become the person to get out of that debt.
Yeah, you mentioned there's a couple of things there. You mentioned the mindset. I know even like with that door, like we had we were in such a bad position, and I bought like the nicest door there, by the way. That was like just one thing that I remember, right? And it's just like you just don't have the right mindset on that. But as far as the mindset that had to change, yeah, I went from, it was like that whole fixed versus growth mindset thing. We just, kind of felt like this is how it is. This is what you do. And just to be clear too, we had all that debt, but not all of that was credit card debt. It was student loans on both mine and my wife's side. Also, a big chunk of that was a loan with a family member when I bought my house. So it was just all different types of debt. It wasn't like, getting into $130,000 of credit card debt, but all those things added together. But the biggest shift on the mindset was, it was kind of instantly. There were areas, and I think we all can relate to this. There were areas that I had more of that growth mindset with, and there were areas I had more of that fixed mindset with. There was certain things like with sports, like I believed in myself. I believed that if I work hard, I can, get to a higher level. You and I share the passion of martial arts, and with finances before that point, I just felt like, hey, this is what it is. But when that happened, when that car got repossessed, and when my wife and I were arguing all the time, and just not the life that I imagined, something switched in my head, and I got mad, and I just said, this is it. Like I am changing. Like I just knew I had to change, because what I'm doing now isn't working. So I think it was an example of like hitting rock bottom, and it being a good thing in the sense that it caused me to just flip that switch. And now there's good and bad in that, because now sometimes I can be so extreme because of that switch that I can go too far. But at that point in time, I said, this is it. I said, like, game on. Like, we are switching our future. Like, we are not going to live like this. And, I was relatively young. Of course, I wish I was even younger, but I knew I had some time. I knew that time was going to pass either way. So I could either start making these changes, and just so everybody knows the outcome. So 5 years, we paid off every dollar of that debt.
Nice. So what were some of the changes that you made? Well, like you said, okay, this is it. I'm going to change. I'm going to change my future. I'm not going to live like this.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the first thing you did?
One of the first things we did was we started like thinking and talking about what we wanted, like what kind of future we wanted. And we hear it all the time, like talking about your goals and your vision, but we did that. I still have it as a notebook with, all the things we wanted our life to be like, where we wanted to be from a financial standpoint, what we wanted our lifestyle to be like. And it was filled with like motivation, and we had, Bible verses in there and quotes and all this stuff. And it was something that we used on our journey to kind of keep us on the same page. That was one of the first things that we did. And then we stopped, we made sure that we stopped borrowing money. So we weren't going to borrow a dollar from anybody, because we saw where that got us. And another thing that we did was we started, I call it a spending plan now, but at the time we called it a budget. Is we just started being really intentional about, hey, this is how much we're making. This is where it's going. We're going to, allocate the money that we need to for the things that we actually need. And then basically, like, almost every other penny is going to go towards this goal that we have of paying down this debt. We use the debt snowball method, which is taking all of your debts and you line them up in order of lowest balance to highest balance. So whether you're doing it from bottom to top, let's just say you put your lowest balance first, and then all the way, however many you have. And we had a lot, and you kind of just knock them out one at a time, and you pay all the minimums. And then once you pay off that lowest balance amount, you take the minimum from that one and you throw it into the second one. So now you have the minimum that you were paying on the first, and you're combining that with the second one. Not only that, you're doing that, but you're doing everything else you could think of. You are selling stuff. You're putting in extra hours. I started doing all types of things. Talk about martial arts. I started doing self-defense seminars at the local libraries. I was going around to all different libraries, like after work, and doing seminars for $250. And every time I did one, I threw that towards that next debt. So when you started taking that momentum, and that's why it's a snowball, and it really, it starts adding up quickly. And then before you know it, like we got to that last debt. I have it. I looked at it, like it was a little while ago now, but a year or two ago, that last debt we paid was like, it was a ton of money. It was like, I think it was like somewhere between 30 and 50,000 when we started it. It was a huge amount. And that last debt, it was like such a big payment. It was like the last payment was like an $8,000 payment. All that momentum had built up just from paying all those other ones off.
Nice. So I like that quite a bit, because I just started working with a business coach, a new business coach I was telling you about. And so our first session, what we did was that we talked about what I wanted for the business, goals for the business. So we set just 2 goals. And then one was to get to a certain revenue, monthly revenue, repeating revenue amount by November. Mm-hmm. And then he says, okay, let's let's look at that. And then we were reversed engineered to see if it was realistic. Okay, what's, the average client pay per month? And then, so based on that, you need X amount of clients. So now that you need X amount of clients, you need this many clients per month, which means you need this many leads per month, which means you need this many appointments, and then this many closes. So then all of those numbers, and then I can lay it out and see if it's a realistic goal or not.
Mhm.
If I'm expecting to get 100 new members a month, it's probably not a realistic goal. So I got to dial that back. So it sounds like you did the same thing with your debt. You just sat there and lined it up. And there's a tremendous amount of anxiety with like lining up, like seeing all of that debt, right? It can be overwhelming, right?
Yeah. So actually a couple points on that. So yes, at some level, but in a really weird way, it created a little bit of relaxation of, okay, like, it's like, okay, like now at least we see exactly what we're dealing with. I felt like I was more anxious when I didn't have a grasp for it and I didn't really have a plan. Don't get me wrong. Yes, it was scary and I was anxious, but there was a part of it that was like, okay, this is what we have to do. Let's just now follow the plan. And what's weird is that like we've come so far from then, and in some ways, like I missed that because it was like so simple in some ways. Like it was like, oh, we just have to pay this debt. That's our goal. Like now, when you get to this level, there's no more debt, and it's like, now what? It's like you have to start getting, you have to grow, and that's a great thing. But in a lot of ways, like for where I was at, it was the perfect plan because it was like I could wrap my head around it. All we got to do is pay off this next debt, then this next debt, and then one day we wrote that last check, and it was like the weirdest thing because it was like everything we did for the last 5 years was built around like all of our conversations, everything, and it was just like.
Yeah, and I think the key to that too is that you brought your wife on board. I mean, I think at the time, like when you get your car repossessed, it's kind of hard not to tell your wife about that, right? Where's your car? Oh, well, Johnny borrowed it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Forever. So you got to have that conversation, but you brought your wife into it and you guys were on board, you came up with a plan and you guys were on the same team, and that's crucial, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's one of the greatest joys that I have is being able to be on the same page as a financial coach now. That is it's probably the most common issue or question that I get, or the biggest pain point for people is they're not on the same page as their spouse. So to be on the same page as each other then, and even now with where we're going, there is such a dramatic difference when you're swimming in the same direction versus when you're not. I mean, there's all types of examples. Some people, they just don't talk about it at all. Some people are really fighting each other. Some people are going opposite directions. Like this one is spending without even thinking about it. This one's trying to do the opposite. So it becomes really challenging when, when you're not on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk about it all the time, that elephant in the room of, entrepreneurs and Fitpros who like give 110% at work, and then they come home and there's a couple of scenarios, right? They give 110% at work, they come home, they're drained, they have nothing left to give their loved ones. So their client and their business gets the best of them, and their family and their loved ones get the worst of them. And that's never a winning formula, And then the other thing is that that I see a lot, and I've had to do this too. I think we all have at some point, but you become a hype man for your business, right? Because you want this business to go, you want it to make it, you want all those dreams that you talked about, but it's just not happening, right? So then you got to hype it up. Oh, next month we got this big promo. Oh, next month we got this new program. I know it's going to hit big, and then we're going to be fine. Or maybe I should reach out and maybe we can do this, and then that will be the answer. They're always looking for that magic bullet, but there is no magic bullet.
No.
Right. No. So it's just daily habits, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds like Ralph Cramden, right? He always had the big plan to make it strike it big. And his wife just knew that he was being an idiot. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just being on that. I think one of the things that's helped us the most, and honestly, I'm proud of this. This is now going on about 11 years now. I always say 10 years, but all of a sudden, like the years passed, right? So it's got to be like 11 years now that we started this journey, and we have not missed one single month of doing, we call it a family meeting. So every single month we talk about our finances as part of that. And that's been really helpful for us. It's just like, you talk about, that entrepreneurial poverty. And I know Pat Lencioni mentions this, if you follow him. He talks about how, you look at business, all these podcasts we talk about, we listen to, you hear of like people following traction, right? You're doing these, these quarterly meetings, you're going over your vision, you're going over your values, you're meeting with your staff for 15 minutes every week to make sure they're doing all right. And you're doing all this stuff. And then you're not doing any of that stuff at home, right? You have kids that you don't even know what's going on with them. You never talk to your spouse. So he's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Like and you're saying that you have the business because you want to support your lifestyle. So at some level, yeah, it might be awkward for people to put, a meeting with their family member on their calendar. But essentially, like, that's what it takes, right? Because why we do it in the business? Because we know that it takes that focus, it takes that intentionality, it takes that communication, it takes that culture to succeed. So it's going to take the same thing at home. So we're foolish to think that, we're going to reach all these goals without doing those things. Is it easy? No, because a lot of times, life gets really messy and chaotic, and it's not easy, and we're not perfect. But I think that's there's a lot of value in, at some level, treating your personal life like a business. So you're the CEO of your life, which you're pretending is a business, and you're doing that with your finances. You're doing that with the team members, which are the people in your family, and I think that's just a worthwhile approach.
Yeah, that's a great point. I never thought of it like that, but you're absolutely 100% correct. So what does your family meeting look like every month?
Yeah. So we actually, it's evolved, I'll throw some advice out there too, just based on my experience. Because a lot of people, they feel like their spouses feel like the other spouse is sort of being, like a boss, like, hey, we're talking about the finances and I want to talk to you about what you're spending. And that's like the wrong approach. So I think it starts with, like, setting the framework. And similar to a business, right? You go to a team member, which we call them, right, employees. And it's just like, hey, I want to talk to you about, what you're doing wrong and how you can get better. It's like, no, it's like, hey, we're all on the same team. We're working towards this common vision. So I'm going to, want to talk to you about how it's going, how I could help. Of course, there's leadership in there, and there's going to be some consequences if things aren't done, of course. But it's coming at it together, and you're doing it as a team. So before you even get to that point, I think there are conversations of what the future could look like. Try to get on the same page, try to make it as fun as possible. Because realizing that I'm reading a book right now called Principles by Ray Dalio, and he talks about the fact of, and he didn't even get this until, a guy like him, as successful as he is, he didn't get this until a little bit later, of how different personalities, and we expect everybody to be like us. Like, Jim, maybe you and I, we're like super, focused, and we have these goals, but not everybody's like that, right? Some people, like, they're just not wired that way. So just realizing different personalities are seeing things differently, and respecting that, and trying to make it as fun as possible. Maybe it's doing it over dinner or a glass of wine, or something like that, going out somewhere. And then, so the way we do it is, yeah, exactly. The way we do it is, we just break it out into categories. So the family meeting would be finances. So at the beginning of the month, or ideally it's before the month starts, we talk about all the things that are on the horizon. So we have 4 kids, 10 and under. And it's like, okay, this one's got dance, this one's got, her swimming lessons, this one's got soccer, whatever it is, talking about all the things that are coming up, and what they're going to cost. Hey, we need to get we just did our backyard, and we didn't have a grill because we just did all this work. So we had to get a grill. That's just these things that we all have, right? Things that are coming up, things that we want to address, talk about them. So that all gets kind of planned out. And it's kind of like a budget meeting, for lack of a better word, like a business would do. Businesses should do the same thing, right? So if you're listening to this and you're a gym owner, it's like you should be doing the same thing, right? Before the month starts, if you have an admin, talk to them about what's coming up. Like, do we need ink? Do we need paper? Do we need new kettlebells? Or do you just buy it on a whim without a plan? You're going to be better off, as with anything, if you have a plan. So just kind of projecting out what kind of things you have to buy. And so on the finance side, different decisions, we'll talk about it. Hey, we're getting a dog, right? So it's like, hey, this is what I would like. What do you think? This costs this costs that, just a basic conversation, both sharing your thoughts, trying to make each other both feel understood, right? It's not like my way or the highway. And that's something I've learned over time, because I can be a little dominating, but it's like, you know what? I don't know everything. And a lot of things that she brings a great perspective to. So just talking about those things, and then we do other categories. So that's like the financial side. And then we talk about other areas, like other family things that are unrelated to finances. Like, listen, we're having a really hard time with our 3-year-old. She keeps throwing things at her siblings. Yeah, I don't know, whatever it is, it's like, hey, how are we going to address this? What do we think we should do? And just making a little bit of a plan. We include some gratitude in there. Hey, let's talk about a win from the previous month, something that we can kind of celebrate together. Hey, last month we were able to, maybe it's, pay off our debt or whatever it is, right? So we do that. We do the different categories, and we do fitness, talk about our fitness and how we're doing and our goals and different plans. We talk about our faith, which is super important to us. And so we just do, and then at the end of the month, we do like a closeout. So we basically take, just like a business as well. Hey, this is what we said we would do. Let's talk about how we did it. And then I usually take the reins of that information. So she just she shows up, and we have a great time. But I'm the one that fills in the spreadsheet and does all that kind of nerdy stuff. And then at the end of the month, we go over it together and say, hey, we said that we would do this. Let's see what actually happened and what kind of adjustments we could maybe make for next time. So we used to do it all together. Now we kind of break it up, and we do the meeting and then a closeout. So it's kind of like 2 meetings a month on that.
Nice. And you've been doing that for going on 6 years?
So we have not missed one meeting and in 11 years. So every single month.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the biggest factors in the results that we've gotten. It's like, I don't know. It's like I guess it's just getting on that vision, getting on the same page, seeing the results. Of course, we're not perfect. There are some months we do it later in the month than we'd like, but we haven't missed one.
Okay, nice. I like that quite a bit.
In fact,
I like having. Go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, it's September 3rd now, and we've already done our planning meeting. But some say, we have a busy life, right? So sometimes we'll do the financial part, and then we'll go back and do the other parts. So again, it's not always perfect.
Yeah, and I think at some point one of you has to be kind of, at least initially, because probably for the first 2 months you guys were on it, you were all about it, but as time goes on, that kind of fades and it kind of erodes. And like, we'll push it off, and somebody's got to be kind of for lack of a better term, the nag to say, no, we got to do this, right, to stick to it, so that then it becomes a habit. Yeah.
I would say that's me. And she is, it's interesting because I'm that person, but she's never going to say no, I don't want to do it. It's just a matter of, you're right, somebody has to kind of stay on top of it, similar to a business too, right? You might be the leader in the business, and you have some KPIs. And if you never address them or bring them up, they may or may not do it. We do a thing where we ask our coaches to do like a shout out to a client after the session, stuff like that. Right. So they some of them are great and they do it. Some of them have to say, hey, how's that going? How are you doing with that? You kind of keep it in their ear and just be a little bit of that nag. And as much as we don't like to be like that, I think at some level it's unrealistic to think that you're going to set an expectation and then it's going to be followed, without you being involved at all. I mean, wish it was that way, but it's not the case.
Yeah. No, you can have the best systems in the world, but if you don't follow up with them, if you don't hold people accountable, or hold yourself accountable to them, then they're useless, right? So I want to circle back to what you said earlier. So 5 years in, you make that last big payment, you paid off all your debt, and it's just got to feel like you just won the Super Bowl or something, right? But then there's probably this moment of, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. This is the weirdest thing. And this might be the most valuable lesson of the podcast, that it's almost embarrassing. Like, cause I, as great as it was a bit of a letdown. And it's so hard to say that, cause you gotta be like, what are you crazy? Like, you just paid off so much debt. You have all this opportunity. And I looked around, I was looking for the balloons and like all the dinging bells and stuff like that. And they didn't happen. And I'm like nothing's really different. And I'm like, what's this about? So that was one almost regret that I had, is my expectations were false. And I think that happens a lot to me, where it's like, everything, right? Like, once I do this, it's going to be awesome. Once I do this, like, and I'm very achievement oriented. You mentioned like, get the black belt, do this, do that. But it's like, you often lose sight of the whole journey. And it's that maybe corny cliche, like the joy is in the journey, but it really is. I know John Maxwell talks about that, which I love. He says that success is not the destination. Success is the thing you're doing to get there. So like in my example, I wasn't successful when I wrote that last check. I was successful when I made the decision to get out of debt and start making a plan. That was successful. So your client is successful when they show up to their workout, even if they're still 100 pounds overweight. They're successful the minute they start making that decision. But that was the case. That was how I experienced it. And now I have these bigger goals, and I'm kind of, I have to be very mindful that the same thing doesn't happen, because, right, you set a goal, you reach it. You set a bigger goal, you reach it. At some point, it's like, what is the point? Because I'm going to keep reaching a goal, and what is it for? So yeah. So we once we paid off that last debt, what did we do? We just started making other goals, investments and things like that. And yeah, it's great. Of course, I'm glad we did it. But hindsight, I would have tried to enjoy the process a little bit more.
Yeah. And I agree with you that you were successful once you made that decision and put a plan in place and did it consistently, because you talk about all those cliche things, and they're cliches for a reason, right? Because they work, but they only work if you really incorporate them into your life. Like, I know we talked earlier, I'm reading that book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, with the 10 scrolls. And so where you're supposed to live with a scroll for 30 days, right? But like, what I found is that when I live with each scroll for 30 days, I learn so much more about the scroll, because I become more conscious about how to incorporate it into my daily life. Then it starts to take on a life within my life, right? It starts to change my life in a positive way, in the way that I want to. And it's the same, whether it's, getting X amount of clients, getting X amount out of X amount of debt, or whatever it is. You have to sit down and you have to make that plan, and then you got to stick to it. It's those, like you said, it's like, when a client, like you said, client that comes in 100 pounds overweight. How'd you get 100 pounds overweight? Well, it didn't happen in one meal, right? It happened over a lifetime. I didn't just, go to Thanksgiving dinner and walk out 100 pounds heavier, right? It happened over time. It happened as a result of my lifestyle, my habits, and acting on those habits. So now I just have to create new habits, right?
Yeah. It's funny. You say that, And it makes such perfect sense. But I remember thinking when I was younger, like, man, how could anybody get to be that overweight? And wouldn't you start realizing it and change? Like I would. And then here I am in $130,000 of debt. And it's just crazy.
Yeah, don't throw rocks from that glass house, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what did your mindset or kind of attitude around this process change when you went from getting out of debt to growth?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It changed, and it's a work in progress. I think there are like different struggles that come up, or different challenges that come up that you have to be mindful of. You have to address. I know, like if I'm honest, from a negative standpoint, I went through a period where I was very judgmental towards people, and because I was I was on the right path now. So if you're
Full of
somebody,
self-righteousness,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So
like a smoker that quit.
yeah, exactly. So I still have to keep that in check sometimes, and it's not something I'm proud of. But so that there's just different things that come up. But one of the things I'll say, like from a positive standpoint, is it's just hard. It's hard. I don't know where, obviously I have no idea where people are at that are listening. Maybe they're further along than I am now. I mean, who knows? But you just never really know what you can do until you get to that next level. If I would have told you then what my goals are now, like I would have thought like you were crazy, or you would have thought I was crazy. Like you just realize, wow, like it just builds confidence. Like if we could do that, what else could we do? And it's like, and then you just kind of like keep going. And honestly, now I can see how people in the past, it was like those other people that become financially successful. I didn't connect with them. I was on the other side but now it's like, I can see it. Like you just do what you say. You just follow the steps for a period of time, and it happens. And yeah, I never would have thought I'd be setting the goals that I am now, and probably will look back in 10 years from now and think the same way for how I am now. I'd be like, man, that's what I was working on then. Like, things are so much different now. So I think that's one of the cool things about like setting and achieving goals, is that when you start out jujitsu, right? Like you're just working really hard to learn how to defend yourself. And like, you never think, wow, one day I could be at, this level. So yeah, that was one of the bigger, I think one of the bigger positive effects from doing that.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Well, Billy, this, as always, has been great. I've learned a lot from this, and it's funny, I don't believe in coincidence. I just had a meeting with my business coach on Tuesday, and we went through all of this, and at the time, it kind of like you, like where had all these ideas swimming around in my head about my business, but I didn't feel like I was able to kind of distill them into some kind of cohesive plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when I sat down with the coach and he gave me specifics in specific tasks where I was able to put it together on what I needed to do in a cohesive plan and a timeline, all of that stuff, and put it together, then it was like when you put all of those debts, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, all right, now I know the complete picture. So some of that anxiety went away, and it was the same for me. So again, it's like those little cliche sayings, but they're so true. So we talked a lot about habits. So what do you think is your most successful habit right now, or habit that brings you the most success, I should say?
Yeah. When it comes to finances,
or just in general? You can go finances, you can go personal, you can go jujitsu. I'd be curious on jujitsu.
the one thing that comes to mind is learning.
Okay.
I think I can't like even describe how much value I have experienced in my life through learning. And that could be through reading, podcasts, training programs, coaching. And the reason I like that answer is because it kind of relates to all those areas. I feel like through learning and personal growth, I have grown in my faith. I have grown in my relationships. I have grown in jujitsu and fitness. I have grown in business. I have grown in finances, and I still have, a ton of growth to do, of course. but I think that habit is probably, it's gotta be the top habit unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I would agree with you that I call it the student mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Never be afraid to be the dumbest one in the room. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't know something, ask.
Yeah, and let me add one thing to that, because this is
Uh-huh.
something that I'm also like kind of realizing more and more, is that it's such an obvious thing, but just to kind of just keep it in mind, that we're all coming at things from a certain lens. All of us have had a certain upbringing, a certain family, of origin, certain experiences that have happened to us. Like, here's just a total real example for me. I am very debt averse right now, or I have been, because of my situation, right? I have a buddy of mine, one of my really good friends. He's starting to get into real estate. He's doing like these leverage deals and stuff like that, and I'm just not there. And it has to do with the lens that I have. Is he wrong for doing that? I could never say that. Am I wrong for not doing that? I can't really say that either, right? We're both just coming at our situation from, partly from where we come from. And I think the more we realize that, the more we can accept where other people are coming from, the more we can understand other people, the more we can understand ourselves. And also the more that we can possibly change in a good way and say, you know what, maybe now I'm learning new information so I can start changing my perspective a little bit. And that's why I respect guys like that. I know there's people in our industry that are just like, hey, you know what? I used to think this, now I don't. Like, that doesn't make you any worse. It makes you better because you acknowledge that you changed your mind, and that's fine.
Yeah, one of my favorite strength coaches, Mike Boyle, says that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason I love him so much. Is that
Mm-hmm.
he evolves, he grows, he changes, he doesn't stay the same.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Charles Atlas was the man back in his day, but there's so many better techniques and out there right now than what he did.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have to grow and change with the times. I agree with you. Well, Billy, as usual, this has been a lot of fun. I can't wait till we meet in person.
I know.
Yeah, because we've known each other for a long time. We've talked so much, but where can people get in touch with you, find out more, hire you as a coach, learn more about
Yeah.
your website, all of that good stuff, your
Yeah.
podcast?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I would say social media like Facebook, just message me. You could look it up, Billy Hofacker. It's actually under William Hofacker. And that's if you want to just get in touch directly, like ask a question or something like that. But if you want to kind of see the content I'm putting out, I'd love for you to check out. And if you enjoy it, subscribe to the Your Fitness Money Coach podcast. And that would be awesome and appreciated.
Okay. And then you can also go to yourfitnessmoneycoach.com, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, awesome. And all of those links will be in the show notes. Just go to Trainer Jim, click on this episode of the podcast, and the links to contact Billy will be right there. Billy, as usual, man, this has been great. I've learned a lot. Always enjoy talking to you, man.
Thanks, brother. I just want to thank you for all you're doing. I love the content you're putting out. Love your podcast, and I consider it just a huge blessing to be a friend of yours.
Yeah, same here, man. That's why I put you in my book. That's why you're a chapter in the book.
Nice.
Grow at the rate of cash.
That's
I will
right.
never forget that statement. And I think it's true. So I think, if you just do that, you can't go wrong. So if you want to learn more about Billy, you can check out his chapter in my book, Masters in Fitness Business, because he is that indeed. So Billy, thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, brother.